So, today we're going to remove and replace the trunk lock cylinder in this 1999 Toyota Corolla.
First we're going to take off this plastic cover if your car still has it. And then there's a couple, 3 10mm bolts holding on the rear taillight lens. So we're going to take those off because we need to move the light a little bit to get access to the lock. Alright, then we're going to detach this rod. It's just a little plastic clip. Just move the clip over like so, and then the rod comes out. This thing should be a little bit floppy, so that's okay. Now you see this bracket here? This is the bracket that's holding the lock cylinder into the trunk. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a pair of regular pliers, and we're going to grab on to this yellow zinc clip and slide it upwards, and that will disengage the lock. Then we can just pop the lock through the trunk and it's free. There you go, just like that. Okay, I took the trunk cylinder lock out of the car and cleaned it up a bit because it was pretty dirty. But the problem is, you take the key for your car and put it in the lock, nothing happens. And so what I suspect has happened is inside the lock there's these little metal gates, and they're very hard, like they made of really hard metal, so they're kind of brittle. And what sometimes happens is these things will crack, and then it'll make it so that the lock won't turn. The key still fits, but half of this gate is still left in position. And if you see these little towers on the gate here, that's what prevents the lock from turning in the cylinder. So the first step is we're going to take the little arm off the back, and it's just got this little circlip here, so we're just going to pry the circlip off. There it goes. Then the little arm comes off. Just remember the orientation of the arm as it's bent towards the lock. Put that to the side. And then we have to take off this decorative ring to help pull the lock guts out. So I'm just going to grab a flathead and we're just going to pry up here and here on the 2 dents, and it should pop off. There we go, now we got the cap off. Alright, now here's the rest of the lock. Now this inside part should come out. So on the top we've got the weather protector, like the cover for the key. So we're going to take that out, noting its orientation, and then here's the insides of the lock. So by pushing down on this pin at the back, we should be able to get the lock to come apart. So we'll pull it out, and let's see what we find. Are there any broken gates? Well, there's certainly debris in here. Let's clean this up and have a better look. Okay, I got that all cleaned up, and man, that was yucky. So we've got the lock cylinder here with all the little gates in there, and then we've got the body here, and you can see how it works. The gates have these little parts that stick out on there, and when you stick your key in, the gates all align. And here we can actually see the offending gate. See how it's still sticking up there? And then the little ball bearing for the spring-loaded dealie on the back of the lock fell out, so we'll have to put it back. So what we're going to do here is, we can see the problem. Everything is nice and smooth with the exception of this one gate. So what we're going to do is we're going to engage in 1/8 less security. We're actually going to pull that gate out of there. You could replace it, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. One less gate isn't going to reduce the amount of security you have for your trunk. And we'll just double check. Yep, fully smooth over here. Smooth over here, just this last gate. So that's what we're going to pull out. Okay, here's the gate we're going to pull out. I'll pull my key out here, grab my little pliers, and we'll grab that last gate and pull it out of there. Now I don't know why it doesn't work. We could explore that, or we could just get rid of the gate. And there's a little spring in there, so we can try and get that out of there too. There it goes, fell out. So now when we put our key in here, minus that last gate, everything's nice and smooth, and the lock should turn properly. Okay, now that we've removed the offending gate and the offending spring, we can reinstall the lock cylinder. So here's the key, put the key in the lock cylinder, everything's nice and smooth, so we can do a test fit. Note there's a hole in the bottom of the lock cylinder. That'll line up with this hole in the bottom of the body. So we'll take the lock cylinder, insert it, and then with the key in, we can try twisting it. And now it twists. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it back just a little bit to expose this hole and make sure the spring didn't fall out, which it did. So we'll put the spring back in. So there we go, we've got the spring inside there. So we're going to line that spring up with the lock body. We're going to put the ball bearing into the hole there, and then we're going to slide it back. Come on, ball bearing, get in there. There we go, ball bearing pushed into the spring, and then the lock cylinder pushed in. Now we're going to reinstall the weather wiper on the front. So you can see that's where the spring sits for the water gate on the front of the lock. So we'll just put the spring back in and the little gate. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, that was a bit of a wrestling match. Now we're going to take the decorative ring here and we're going to put it back on. It's foolproof because the notches are on the same side on each side, so you can put it on either way. Just don't lose your spring cover after all that work. And slide it back on. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to put the clip back on the rear. Okay, we take our lock, and then we take the little arm. Now remember, the arm angled towards the lock this way, and again, it only fits one way. If you try to put it on backwards, it doesn't fit. It's got this little tooth here, so it fits down into the lock like so. And you can see it's got freedom of movement a little bit there. So we're going to take our circlip and we're going to put that back on. Sometimes easier said than done. Okay, there we go. We've got our circlip on. A little bit of looseness. Now, let's see how we did. Take our key, put in the lock. Now it works. Now what I would recommend before reinstalling it back in your car is putting just a little bit of light oil in here. You can use grease, I suppose, when it's all apart, but when it gets cold, grease can sometimes get a bit sticky and those gates need to move fairly freely. But a thin oil is fine. And before you go to all this effort, the lock might just be seized, so I mean you could try putting some oil in the lock to free it up. But it looks like we're in business now. And again, to recap, we just removed a gate that wasn't behaving. Again, I don't really know why. I was expecting to find a broken gate, but this one was solid. So I'm not sure why the key or the gate weren't playing nice, but this lock is still relatively secure. We still have 7 of the 8 gates, which isn't too bad. So I'm just going to reinstall it back in the car. Alright, let's wrestle the cylinder back in to the trunk. Tail light a bit. Put that in the hole. Great. Now we want this little guy to be aiming downward and want it to be seated nice. So then we take our bronze clip, and remember it's facing this way. Nope, it wasn't. It was facing the other way. So position that on there. So snap it in place. Go. Yeah, you want engagement on those tabs on the lock, the tabs on the lock with this locking pin. And then we'll dig around and see if we can find the rod. There it is. Put the rod in the hole. Snap it in place. Okay, now after clipping the rod in, we're going to need to put our 10mm bolts back in, or nuts back in for the tail light. Hopefully it will remain watertight. If you have any doubts, you could always put in some sealant around the light. But I'm going to try my luck. Alright, here we go. Looks pretty good. Thanks for watching. Job done.